and good morning, everyone. How are you? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I guess it really depends on where you are. I should qualify it. It's morning here in the Boston area. And my name is Megan Mitchell. I am the acting director of the Jameel World Education Lab, which is probably familiar to many of you. But for those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Jameel World Education Lab here at MIT, which we refer to as JWEL, it's much easier on the tongue, is the world's portal. We consider it the world's portal to MIT expertise in research, learning, experimentation, and really a laboratory of educational innovation. We collaborate with ambitious and committed institutions around the world. Most of them are our members. Hopefully you're joining us, many of you are joining us from there, to bring our shared vision to life of education designed for everyone to thrive, which is, I hope and believe, if you're here, that's a mission that resonates with you. And we do this through different pillars like our pathways for talent, architecting learning, campus as a catalyst. And that really shapes who we work with and how we work. But you're here today as part of our our series in AI innovation. And we started this series, actually back in the summer, where we heard from our Dean of Digital Learning, Cynthia Brazil, and she spoke about the work that she's doing and the work happening at MIT. But we've also explored some of the spin-outs that are coming out that are, in the nonprofit space, that are doing impact-driven work. But still at scale, and really thinking about how to use AI to reach more learners, or to reach more learners efficiently and effectively. But today we're bringing you some folks who are more coming from the corporate innovation side. And what we'll hear today is from three different panelists, each who have prepared presentations for you, and they are going to share with you the work that they've been doing. So first, we will hear from Deepak Verma of English Helper, and English Helper is really focused on bringing English language learning to many, the English language translation to many different folks around the world. But now they're looking at what can they do and leveraging AI and technology to expand their reach, and really broaden the work that the already really impactful work they're doing. He also serves as a partner at Innovaspark Ventures. And so he's an early stage investor. So really looking across the spectrum of what's happening in the technology space. He is really an innovator across his career, and we're excited to hear from him. He is an MBA. He does have his MBA from MIT Sloan, and he's joining us from Bangalore today. Then we'll turn to Joy Dasgupta, who is the CEO of Gaian AI. And they're a deep tech startup using proprietary and explainable AI language model for research and content development. I'm interested in that explainable qualifier there. But their organization serves international universities, so I'm sure of interest to many of you, but publishing houses, consulting firms, corporations. So, a lot of different companies in the support, or different groups in the kind of business to business side of things. And Joy has deep experience and played many different senior leadership roles at different Fortune 500 companies. And then we'll turn it over to our final panelist, Jean Hammond, another MBA, or another alum from the Sloan School, and actually someone I served on a board with, and works diligently with MIT students here at MIT, but also in her role leading what she calls a micro venture capital firm, LearnLaunch. So you can see why we have her here today, and invests in early stage educational technology firms. So really has a great perspective on how the EdTech landscape has shaped and evolved over time. But in addition to just funding, she really invests in the development of those companies, running an accelerator to help those companies scale, and has invested in more than 86 companies around the world. So as you can see, a great great group of panelists to give us their perspective on what's happening and with their companies, and here to answer your questions. So before we turn it over to our first presentation, each will do about a 15-minute presentation. And I ask you to put your questions in the chat, please, and we'll monitor that and have time at the end of all the presentations for some moderated Q&A, and I'll work in your questions as well. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Bill Bonvillian, who works with us here at JWell and has really been the real driving force behind this AI Innovator series. He has a deep experience in the science and technology space, particularly looking at it from a policy lens, and the work that he's done for the federal government here in the U.S., particularly serving with our Senate leaders, working with them. But he also ran MIT's Washington, D.C. office. So, has a deep understanding of the science and technology and how, institutions need to be thinking about this, but also just an incredible contributor to the team here at JWell. So Bill, can I turn it over to you, please, just to say a little bit about this, as it's your brainchild too.
Thanks, Megan. I think today you're going to really enjoy, I think there's an underlying issue. Why are we talking to companies? What do they have to do with education? Doesn't that still belong to educators? But I think the answer is that companies, particularly smaller firms and new startups, they're risking their futures on the new technologies, and they can take a level of risk and work in ways that educators can't. Companies can really play a role in accelerating technology introduction, while established educational institutions, schools, universities, they can't take that risk, and they don't have that single-minded kind of focus. So companies can really play a useful role in experimenting with new technologies, which is why we ought to talk to these folks. What are these firms experimenting with? What can we expect to see? And I'll just build a little bit on what Megan indicated in her introductions. So Deepak at English Helper is now implementing a major AI-based digital tutoring project to help both teachers and students acquire English. In other words, a computer program that uses AI to create personalized learning experiences for students. And that's a very important early track for AI and probably a principal role. Joy Desgupta is with Guyana AI, which really is a services firm. It's designed to help educators, teachers, individual learners, and bring AI capabilities to them. So it can lead educators. It can help educators. If you're a school that wants to start to apply AI, Guyana AI can help you. It also aids teachers in developing AI-based courses and teaching materials, from course content to video lectures. So, I could give Guyana AI all my teaching materials, my course readings, my lecture outlines, and I can get back a syllabus, lecture notes, slides. And because it's using a closed network of content, it can avoid this set of hallucination costs that have afflicted AI. And it's not only for teachers, it also affects individual learners in designing their own AI-based learning projects. And of course, schools. Panelists, Jean Hammond, will help us walk through what's happening in this world of AI in education. So her firm is both an accelerator that supports and helps mature startup companies, but it also is a micro venture firm that helps connect them with financing and also provide financing for the early stages of those firms. And Jean, who's been working with these companies, can tell us about what some of the most promising firms are doing that she's working with. What are the AI approaches they're adapting for education? And then secondly, she can, from her vantage point of looking at this kind of EdTech AI in education world, give us ideas of what the most promising approaches are for AI in education. So I think, there's a lot we can learn from what these firms are up to about the kind of new pathways that they're trying to create and how AI can assist in educational missions.
Deepak, are you all set to share your screen and
I
can we
think I am.
kick off? Amazing.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Bill and the entire JWell team here for having me on this panel. It's an honor and really looking forward to it. And also, warm hello to all of you from around the world. Great to connect, great to meet. And with that, let's get right to it. So English Helper is actually a company that's been around for some time, about 10 years. And we've been focused on the literacy challenge. We started out initially in India with a product that's really think of it as a classroom product for students to learn how to pronounce and how to build fluency in English using their classroom textbooks. And that product scaled to, fairly large footprint, as you can see on the slide, over 100,000 schools, 25 million kids, most of them in India, some in other countries. But this was a product that was aimed at working with a group of students in a class. It wasn't one-to-one. In the last 10 years, while we built scale with this product, a few things have happened. AI has become far more accessible and far more powerful. Computational power has increased manyfold, and now it's possible to really think about doing large scale systems which are highly, highly personalized. So with that thought in mind, we have been building over the last year our next generation product or platform that we're rolling out currently. It's called the Reading and Comprehension Assistant. And what this is it's really a foundational literacy platform. So it covers listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And it works with learners from absolute novices to, experts. And it works with learners of all types. So students in K-12, students in colleges, uh, young folks, or even moms in India that want to learn English so that they can be more employable. So we work with all of those different groups, and employability is a big theme. Some of the things that this product does, which I think are what makes it so powerful. One of them is it provides instant feedback. So as you're speaking to the product, it will listen to you and it will score your pronunciation. It will break down words you're having difficulty with into their syllables and kind of allow you to hear the correct pronunciation and then your pronunciation and practice yours so that you can get better. It even goes to the phoneme level. And all of this is with the idea of, learning how to pronounce correctly. But then even with passages that it provides to you, you answer questions and it's assessing, are you really understanding what you're reading? So that feedback is coming back in real time. Another, I think, fairly differentiating feature about this platform is it's content agnostic. And what I mean by that is it's not Gen AI, LLM-based technology, which is trained on large amounts of content. It's really an NLP or computational linguistics model, which is A, fairly small in terms of footprint, and B, it works on different types of content. And so if you provide content for young kids, it becomes an early learning product. If you provide content for adults, it's a product for adults. And as a result, we bring our content to the table. But as we work with partners and customers, we're also able to host their content and deliver it to their learners. It is adaptive. And by that, I mean, it will adjust based on how you're doing. If you're having difficulty with the materials, it will step things down. If you're doing really well, it will make things harder so that you're at the level where you're actually able to learn effectively. And it has a bunch of interactive tools, like you can listen to the instructions and even the text that you're supposed to read. You can see it in your vernacular language. You can choose your accents. You can slow down the pace, etc. Just so that it's a little bit more you can tailor it a little bit. Each learner can tailor it to what works for them. And then finally, we are aligning to various curriculums around the world, so to the Common Core in the US, to the CEFR, etc. So what I described to you as these broad set of capabilities, but then the question becomes, how does any specific given learner engage? And so what we've done on top of the platform is we've constructed, call them courses, call them journeys for specific outcomes. So we have a course that we're calling Introduction to Conversational Skills. And here the idea is for blue or gray collar workers to develop enough proficiency in the language to be able to communicate, to be able to take an interview in English, perhaps, to be more confident and comfortable in their social environment with English. And so this is really focused on the conversational side and not so much on writing and things like that. We have another course that we're calling Introduction to Foundational Skills. And this is more of a, if you're familiar with CEFR, which is the Common European Standard Framework for Languages, it starts with a level A1, which is a complete novice, and then goes to A2 and B1 and B2 and C1 and C2. And C2 is folks who are experts. So think of Introduction to Foundational Skills as a course that takes you from A1 to B1, B2. And then we have an advanced foundational skills course that takes you from B2 to C2, right? And so by the time you're done with this, across listening, speaking, reading, and writing, you would be fairly proficient in the language. Now, I did mention that the platform is content agnostic. So we built a couple of things on top of it that are more specific to certain use cases. One of them is the IELTS prep. Again, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the IELTS, but it's like a TOEFL. It's a test that students who are looking to get admitted to universities in the US typically have to take, and they have to clear a certain threshold in order to be considered admissible. What we're finding with universities in the US that we are working with, that there are many otherwise qualified students who satisfy all the criteria for admission, but don't quite make it on a subscore or a couple of subscores of the IELTS. So this is a specific program designed to help students who want to pass the IELTS exam practice for it, take practice tests for it, and then be ready to take the actual IELTS test. So that is the IELTS prep course. And then we have a category that we're calling academic prep. What we mean by this is that, it's one thing to learn foundational English, generic English, but it's a whole other thing if you are looking to become a nurse or an OR assistant or a lawyer. You have to deal with the language of the profession or the language of the course or the language of the subject. And so the idea here is to build specific content for learners that are either trying to get proficient at the language of a course, perhaps in college, or from an employability perspective, are trying to get proficient in the language of the profession they're getting ready for. And so this is something that we can add on, and we will continue to add on as courses we offer for different domains and to get learners comfortable with domain-specific vocabularies. So that is what I had in terms of my prepared remarks. Happy to pause here and interact more in the question and answer session.
Fantastic. Deepak, excellent. I think that really interesting to see how you've shifted or evolved and continued to grow the company and adapt. And I think will spark some interesting questions. But why don't we stay on our presentations, and we have lots of time for questions, and we can kind of assimilate all the different information. Joy, are you ready?
Hello, everybody. My name is Joy Dasgupta. I'm based here in Boston. I'm the CEO of Gyan, which is a language model company, a AI company, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. I'm here to talk about a specific product that we have built for the higher education space on Gyan that is applicable and usable by higher ed institutions as well as corporate L&D departments to basically intelligently discover content and auto-curate it for rapidly generating ready-to-use courses. Okay, so that's sort of the focus. We have built many other products for some other verticals as well. That's out of scope for this discussion. We'll just stay focused on this. And the target audience for this product is essentially faculty, instructors who are in the business of building courses. However, an adjunct and adjacent use case, which I'll also talk about in the course of this, is assessments, auto assessment, firstly setting up auto assessment for open text responses, configuring it, and then actually scoring it when students come in and respond to those questions. Okay. So you know everything that's on this slide, but it's worth stating one more time. Higher ed is at an inflection point. It probably has been for a while. There are these points that you all well know, but I think the items here on the left-hand side is what's key, is now, and I think into the deep future, whatever we do or build is going to need to have these attributes. Okay, I think stuff is going to need to be flexible, whether it's technology, whether it's us, whether how we deliver training, how we prepare for it, etc. So the words that we have come up with as design inputs into our product is essentially whatever we build has to be flexible, responsive, affordable, adaptive, and personalized at quality. Okay, and then of course the key word here is scale. You heard from Deepak as well, like one of the things that AI has enabled us to do is scale things that we otherwise had to deliver in classrooms or in face-to-face models, etc. This is beyond obviously digital learning. This is AI enabled. Oops. So now the promise of AI, and I'm going to talk about a specific branch of AI, which is large, excuse me, language model based, text-based AI. So obviously everybody on this call is well familiar with the arrival of the LLMs back in 2022, and everything changed after that, right? ChatGPT, Anthropic, Meta, everything, all the very exciting products that have come out have created a tremendous opportunity. Okay, it has been backed by a huge amount of marketing. It has also generated a lot of noise. So opportunity and confusion, and what to do with it is basically, we go out and talk to many people, right? Not just in higher ed, in capital markets, in consulting, in large corporations. And the issue there is, the opportunity is overwhelming, but where to start, how to start. And there are some built-in challenges with the more popular brand of AI, the LLM based, and the key one being that it is generally a black box. Okay, and it is, therefore, you cannot double click on it and get to the heart of the analysis and the source of where the analysis came from. Now, in our view, that is a showstopper for many use cases. In higher ed, in legal, in capital markets, in publishing, wherever explainability is important, a black box approach to AI is problematic. It has its uses, it has its applications, but there are places where it just won't work. So I'm here to talk to you about an explainable language model that we have built in Gyan that we have then, that's, too much technical stuff there, but I'm going to talk about a use case around it, which is how we use that to build a course. Okay. So just a very quick blurb on Gyan so that you understand the rest of it is clearer. Gyan basically means knowledge, by the way, in Sanskrit. So there are two pieces here that is applicable to the process of course generation. So first piece is we built Gyan as a research engine, and that is what we apply to discover content and to auto curate content quickly from any source, anywhere, whether it is your private source, Gyan provided sources, or the open internet. So a key point here is that you have full agency. You, the instructor, the course design, instructional designer, the faculty, you have full agency over the content sources that you want to target. Okay, so Gyan will not draw outside the lines. Gyan will not hallucinate, because again, just a little, the technical point is Gyan's model is not trained on data. It is based on the rules of the English language. Okay, we are not using heavy duty math to understand English. We are using the rules of the English language to understand English. So as a result, many of the challenges that we have with large language models that become a challenge in adoption are absent because of that architectural difference that we do not learn from data. No hallucination, no IP infringement, no black box. You have full auditability. There are no cutoff dates. So when you run a Gyan query, you get a response as of now, right? Whatever is there out on the web or in your stores. No inconsistency. So every time you ask Gyan a question, you get the same answer. Okay, doesn't happen in some of the big models out there. So content discovery is very important, obviously, when you're trying to generate a course. And then there's this idea, this auto assessment. So we take that same language model and apply it to a student response against fairly complex rubric. Rubric, could have items like, rate the logical progression of this response. Give a score for the analytical depth of this response. How closely is the conclusion matching the thesis? So we can have some fairly complex rubric, and you can double click to understand where the score is coming from and why a student got a specific score. Okay, so these two things are embedded in this course generator I'm about to show you. And on this graphic on the right is basically saying the same point, that you have agency over the sources. That's very important. Okay, and many versions of AI that's out there, you don't know where the answer is coming from. Okay, you can do RAG, retrieval augmented generation. You can provide your content. It will try to draw inside the box, but it tends to always draw outside as well. So you can bring your private content. Gyan provides some content as well, like all the preprint servers, the archives, bioRxiv, ChemArchive, PubMed, USPTO, etc. We also have MIT OCW pre-ingested. We have a whole bunch of other OERs pre-ingested. So if you want to generate a course using MIT OCW, you can do it today, right away. And of course, the websites. Okay, so that's the backdrop. This particular product does these few things that you would expect, I suppose, in any course generation application. But some of the differences is in how we do it, right? Not in what we do, because the what kind of remains constant. So pedagogically relevant course content. So intelligent discovery using our method of AI from content everywhere, finding the most relevant, discarding the rest. And then auto curation. We leverage the best sources, MIT OCW included. We have support for the autonomous learner. We also have an AI assistant that will sort of take you step by step. And that's the part of the personalization happens there. So you're not in a guided situation, you're in a self-guided situation. Then the assessments that I already talked to you about, another important module in the product. And adaptive personalization. Okay, so here you basically so you do you progress through the course. At a certain point, if you are struggling, you take an assessment, and the engine looking at your past performance and your scores and your performance on the specific assessment, it is going to suggest that you go 2 steps back, or you take this remediation program that's somewhere else outside of the specific course. Okay, so it tries to catch you up and bring you up to that point, so that then you can get the most out of your learning. And this final bullet here is continuous lifelong learning. So when we create this course content, the word continuous basically means that Gyan also keeps that course refreshed. Okay, so say you built a course on, I don't know, introduction to project management, and there's more data, or let's pick a more topical one, renewable energy. where stuff is changing every day, you could set an auto refresh on your course content every month, and you would get the latest stuff, which of course you needs to be human adjudicated. Somebody needs to promote that content into the course, but you will get a good rich collection of all the new stuff that is not in your course that happened last month. Okay, so it's continuously refreshed. This is a busy slide, but I'll just tell you, I think it might be important just to share this briefly with you. This is how it flows. Very simple, okay? First, you come in and you provide Gyan learning objectives, okay? From the learning objectives, Gyan is going to suggest a bunch of learning topics, okay? At each point here, you can see the instructor can intervene, so it is human in the loop right throughout. So Gyan is going to suggest a bunch of learning topics. Instructor then says, okay, these topics look good. Then you trigger Gyan again. Gyan will then go and look at all the sources that you have identified and bring out content. Instructor goes and scans the content and says, generally looks good, I like it, and then pushes go. Then Gyan from that will generate lecture notes, reading list, a video, which you can, of course, then everything you can go in and edit, of course, before you publish it. Assessments, configuration for assessment, like what are good questions for this course. Set up the AI tutor, and also add to the learning path, which learning path is not just for this course, of course, it's across a collection of courses. So it'll then incrementally add to the learning path. And then you finalize the course and upload it. Okay, so that's kind of how it works schematically. Then last thing, I'm just going to show you what a compiled course looks like. So this is a Gyan generated course. It's the talking head here is an AI avatar. So it's, you've seen these. It's good enough, not the best. But this is what it looks like. Okay, so this is a course on project management. It followed that entire pipeline that I showed you. Where is my play button? I hope you can hear this.
Project management for information technology management. What is project management?
So that's the start. Then I just go a little further up to, let's say, I don't know, here. Hit play again.
Management. Given the dynamic nature of IT environments, changes to project scope requirements or technology are common.
So what it's doing is it took the lecture notes, it made slides out of these, and then we get the talking head to sort of read out the slides. So all of that is automated. You can intervene and change and add more content, and then the talking head will start saying those things as well, and so on. And I'll just show you in the end. There's a little summary that happens. If I can get there, somewhere here. He'll try and summarize it.
Management is essential for delivering successful projects that meet organizational objectives, satisfy stakeholders.
You get the idea, right? So it's not automated end to end, obviously, because you need the human in the loop throughout to sort of promote it to the next stage. So that's, I think, all I want to share at this point, and of course, happy to take questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. I am not teaching this semester, and I'm really bummed that I'm not, because I think one of the anxieties of teaching was the excitement, but also like, oh, am I capturing all the new information? What needs to be updated? And having that kind of by your side, or to start fresh and see, just fascinating. So thank you very much. And now finally, we will turn it over to Jean Hammond, who is the founder of LearnLaunch.
All right. Well, I'm also thrilled to be here and very excited that Jaywell is working on these questions, because I just think that education is how we build the future, and if we don't build the future to be ready for AI, we're not building the right future. Let's see. I'm having some slide moving trouble here. Oh,
There we go.
All right. So really quick, just to tell you a little bit more about LearnLaunch so that you just can visualize what we do. So we select a very small number of companies to work with at a time, and then we put them through a process where they get to learn some things, learn from their peers. Of course, you always learn more from your peers than from the instructors. And then put those into their products as they get ready for more interaction with the market. And so we're pretty interested in supporting companies that are going to build what we would think of as sustainable businesses, i.e. they're going to be something that school systems are interested in buying. Every day school systems are buying from, I don't know, Pearson and McGraw-Hill. And so they definitely we're looking for sort of the next big new things. So our process is to really have this learning journey for the companies and to have them think about, what is it that they're trying to measure in their product. And so just as an example, to try to think a little bit about the measurement of education, do we want to measure whether that fifth grader can do an arithmetic problem, or is it more interesting in today's world if we can measure at the same time their improvement in executive function to take on advanced math concepts? So what are we trying to measure when we're looking at things? And for startups, of course, you can't measure everything you're wanting to do with your product day one, but over time you're looking for being able to create good output. So this is about instrumenting your software and instrumenting your system to fit into the environment that you're going to deliver the product in. And then we have a entrepreneur in residence for AI that focuses on how to leverage that data. And all of this is sort of around our philosophy that education systems need to be increasingly data-driven, and when some of that data can be appropriately automated to do that. So really that's sort of our philosophy. And then, let's take a step back and look at the education industry. Is it ready for AI? And I think the big answer is not really. It's a very big global market and continues to grow as more and more people come in to want to be a part of the economies of their countries. And certainly there were a few things that happened when COVID went through. Certainly here in the States, we could see I guess I would call it the further connection of the pipes, putting in the ability to deliver products to people's homes and as well as into the classroom digitally. But many of the things that were coming through were not super effective, and were sort of based on a rote memory learning. So we increasingly see that education is still going through a digital transition. At the same time, it's interacting with AI, which is it's a big bite. It's a big thing to bite off all at once. And another aspect of installed systems in education, and remember, the bulk of the money in education is spent in formal education. So that would include private and public schools and colleges and universities. And there is some amount of parents buying something directly for their students, but really the bulk of the money is in these locations. And so if we're going to affect education, we probably need to build things that will be able to fit into the systems that are there. And in particular, in the US, we have silos of information, like say in a K-12 system, that don't even communicate to each other and are owned by different parties. So let's step back and think a little bit about this relatively slow-moving industry and where AI can come in. It's really interesting to see that in the first 18 months after ChatGPT was announced, about $280 billion of additional spending was spent on implementing generative AI into businesses. And of that, a very tiny percent, around 2%, went into education. And so it's an industry that's relatively slow moving. Often people are worried about, well, how will we be able to use that fairly? How will that affect us? So let's think about this a little bit. What are some places that we can really do things that are different? I think we just saw two really phenomenal examples of interesting ways to use AI. And, obviously, the more that we understand the learner and make sure that that the learning is tuned to what they already know and what they need to learn next, that individualization or personalized pathway is valuable. Looking for patterns. Do we actually understand what's going on in for our learners in a more effective way? And then obviously, as we just saw, the ability to use interactive environments to practice and to build on what you already know. And certainly people who have watched young kids interact with some of these really easy to use AI systems hope that kids will be out there doing inquiry-based learning and finding the next new thing they want to dig into. Not sure every youngster is thinking about the world that way, but it's certainly beautiful when it's happening. Data silos, again, this idea that we can get information out. AI is an aid to learning materials development, and we just saw this in this course development product. It is going to make it much faster to get what you need to know into people's hands. And I loved the lifelong learning component of our presenter because, the idea that you want to teach something about what you can see in the, using telescopes to your astronomy class is fine, but could you include what Hubble looked at last week? Wow, now that would be exciting. So, and keep people interested and engaged. And so I think there's a number of really exciting things going on here. One side of that's coming out, so K-12, it's really about matching learning differences and the content. In particularly as we're looking at education for the purpose of employment, we're seeing increasing amount of conversation about how could we actually understand the skills of the learner and be able to map those to the job requirements. So we have this skills-based hiring conversation going on all over the industry right now. Let's see, I need to watch my time here a little bit. I think there's some very detailed areas that are effective for different parts of the education system. And I'm going to provide a couple examples from our own portfolio in the next slide that kind of get to a number of these little details here. So I've got 4 companies that we've worked with closely, pulled out here just to say how each of them are utilizing AI or what part of AI they think is important for their future. And so I'll start at the beginning. So if you had asked me, when I started LearnLaunch, whether or not first and second grade teachers were going to sit on the floor of their classroom and put logic blocks together with their kids to make little micro robots, I would have been kind of suspicious that they would be uncomfortable with tech. But that's exactly what's happening for Robo Wonderkin. They're not only bringing in robots very early before the kids are scared, these little 6-year-olds saying, I'm going to be an engineer. And, because if you bring in the robots in 5th or 6th grade, the kids from the advantaged backgrounds know what to do. And the kids from the disadvantaged backgrounds step back. They don't know what to do. They're not included. And so that's one of the reasons why we're sort of excited about the idea that this can be going these ways. She's now building in coursework to have students by 3rd and 4th grade be able to not only do some medium weight programming, but also be able to, in some cases, use some AI modules or understand a tool called AI as an additional way to think about getting things done. And she's hoping to build that out so that by 5th and 6th grade, she has some fairly interactive components in there. And again, that's one of the challenges for education and AI is how do we get people involved. Inscribe is working on helping with a sense of belonging in colleges by keeping persistent answers to questions that get asked over and over again, whether they be in student life or they be in coursework, helping make sure that the right questions are getting answered and providing some other small community-based supports. EdMod is an example of the silos of information problem for in the US. We have very, very heavy support of special needs students, but it comes with phenomenal complex government regulation and the need to look up and find out, exactly what kind of accommodation is allowed for which student on which type of activity. And the complexity of looking that up is almost impossible. And so now this is not only keeping this accommodation database, but also providing richer interactions with the teacher to provide hints as well as collect information of the student learning. And Julius is using AI, as I mentioned, for this skills-based view of the universe. They're doing deep skill analysis that's supported by the Department of Energy for the different jobs for solar installers, or they're working with the state of Minnesota on training all of the people that will manage 21 solar farms for the state. And so they're not only building out the courseware by assembling courseware based on exactly what the learner needs to learn from lots of sources. They don't make much courseware. They assemble it and provide it. But they also have built these really deep ways of analyzing a per industry skill analysis that's maybe ahead of the market in number of details it can support. I was just down at New York EdTech Week and saw some more companies working on support of building curriculum, et cetera. And AI is moving very, very quickly. So companies that are already in market are trying to go back and bring additional capabilities, automate and enhance things that they already had. But they're also, but also we're seeing brand new companies come in, particularly around things like course development or a developed specific course.
Jean Hammond 他这样放这一张就里面超 rich， 等下来研究的这样上面的所有公司。
If we can please make sure we're muted.
So this is just a picture of all the companies that are in our active portfolio, just to show the diversity of the kinds of things that we'll be bumping into and working with. Education's not a single thing, it's a complex mix of things. So, maybe just to wrap up here, we really have to think about how we can bring the human inside into the world of an AI mediated world, and to build great jobs that do have a human inside, and try to figure out what that world will look like. I think the industry as a whole is in a discussion about measuring what matters. And so, what matters? How are we going to measure the things that really do matter? How can we make sure that our assessments aren't measuring what was needed for, 1987, and instead are measuring what is needed today? We certainly need to experiment with let's see, this is my hope for the education industry, that we get much more experimental. We just let people go and do things, that we not have really rigid environments. Because if we're bringing up kids in rigid environments, and then they get to the range of options that AI hopefully ethically provide to us, you know, we're gonna need some people who are interested in the finding things. We certainly can develop more personalized and pathways. And I'm a big fan of education being more researched. When we go to research what's going on in the world, we end up in a much deeper place, right? So if what we're doing is we're helping youngsters set memories and understandings that allow critical thinking in their brain, then we need to understand how that happens, what's going on in learning science, as well as what's going on in the education industry.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you to all of our presenters. I think, you know, we kind of took a deep dive into two sets of technologies or two companies, and then had a beautiful kind of landscape look from Jean. So I mean, I think for the folks here on the call, there's going to be a lot of Googling and searching and doing more research into the different companies. There's something I heard throughout that I would love to, kind of a string I'd love to pull on. And, you know, that is, you know, in Joy's presentation, you had kind of on one of the sides, you know, education needs to be flexible, responsive, affordable, adaptive. And Jean, at the very beginning, you kind of, you know, is it ready for AI? Is the industry ready for AI? You want to see it be more experimental. You know, I think the people on this call, the people who show up for these types of sessions are there. They're the early adopters, right? They're the ones willing to do some experiments and try some things new. But I know from a long career in higher education, the education industry isn't always the most flexible and responsive. And so how do you think about, from your vantage point, shifting mindsets or equipping people to help, you know, really leverage this type of technology? Whether that's in, you know, something is, you know, core to your business's sales, you know, and building a sales funnel and a sales pipeline, particularly on an enterprise side, to, you know, getting out and getting that evidence-based, you know, those findings that will help change mindsets. Or maybe there's some other great way. Maybe it's a grassroots approach. So I'm just curious from each of the panelists, how you think that we can move so many people forward in the industry that are a little bit less flexible and responsive.
You know, I think that the things that we've always known really work in education, learning from your peers, being in small groups, project-based learning, experiential learning. I think the more that we can sort of say, hey, one of the things AI is bringing us is the ability to bring what we've always known worked into the environment, and maybe have less expectation of, you know, everybody in this group of 35 people or 25 people are sitting in a room together doing the same thing at the same time. And so probably there's a mix of issues going on that looks like that if we can help the teachers and the instructors feel that they're getting to do what they always wanted to do by utilizing some new tech, that should help. You know, the internet didn't kill education, so AI probably won't either.
Yeah, I think, you know, we have a more kind of a narrow kind of offer. In some ways it's broad but narrow. And what we're looking for is across three broad categories of education or learning. There's the K-12, there's higher ed, and then there's youth, adults, etc.
Mhm.
And in each of those, what are the glaring problems that everybody sees and everybody's tackling and they're getting hurt by it, right? Within the education system. So, for example, in India and also in the US, I mean, when you look at tests of fifth graders or sixth graders and how are they doing compared to how they should be doing, are they reading at grade level, etc. I mean, that there's real data around that, right? And so that's what we try to focus on. And in some places we've had, I think, a fair amount of early success, and in some places we've had no movement at all, right? So in higher ed, when we focus our conversation around Are you trying to admit more international students, and are you being unable to do so because of language lack of ability? Well, we can help with that. Now, let's say you admit a student who clears the IELTS or whatever and joins, and semester 1 happens, semester 2 the courses get harder, semester 3 they get even harder. Now what? And so are you seeing a drop-off problem because some of these folks who are not, I mean, they've got marginal level of language skills, encounter tough courses with tough language, are they dropping? Well, we got a solution for that, right? And employability is very different. I think there's economics that drive that system, so it's not so hard. I think what's hardest from my perspective is like K-12, just this. I mean, those are complex systems, and you got to work your way through those complex systems, and it's time consuming and it's hard. But we are there. We got to keep trying until we figure out what the right answer is here.
I'll chime in with a slightly different perspective, because I think it's the rate of change question, right? And the world is changing. So nothing we can do about it at a rate that is accelerating. It's not the change is accelerating, the rate of change is accelerating. So that's a double there. And then that's on the receiving side of your students. And on the other side, the technology is evolving even faster. Okay, so here we are in between. How do we prepare these children and young adults and adults for that? Connect the dots. So I'll give you a vendor's perspective, our perspective. So we are trying to sell into this, right? Okay, just to put on my hat. So what do we do? Okay, so everybody's change resistant. Adults don't change easily. So we are looking for early adopters. We are looking for the path of least resistance to get in and make the point and try to demonstrate what's in it for me. Ultimately, that's the question. Okay, whether you're an instructor, faculty, dean, provost, what's in it for me? Okay, and of course, my institution may be there, whatever your expanded sense of me is. Okay, and so that we have to hit. But I think the other thing that we did, and just to put it out there, so with this course generator thing actually was born from this idea, which is let's go to a place where it's kind of, there's nobody there, right? So this is we are going to the instructional designer in a place where he or she is working on Microsoft Word and Google. There's no major application in this part. Okay, so there's really no resistance. So we can get in and we can show the value that this is how you can get going. And after that, of course, when you get into the learning delivery part, there's a lot of other competing tools. But by then, maybe we have changed a few minds. So net, I think this is a change management problem, which is obviously well known, but hard to crack. But
I love you saying going to where there's an open space.
Yeah.
And maybe that's one of the things that will come from AI in education, is that some of the less rigid education environments will be able to adopt new things faster. And we may see, some of the, the big new markets in education are Latin America and particularly Africa, because there's just such a huge percent of the population that's still undereducated, phenomenally undereducated, lots of white space.
So beyond the dollars and cents, or the, in the revenues, like how do we think about impact? I mean, you are in an education space, and yes, people often adopt new things because of, what's in it for me? Like, how can I use this? What problems does it solve for me? But, impact is important. And in this kind of ever changing and evolving environment, the way people think about impact might be different. Are there metrics that, Joy and Deepak, you use to think about the change, beyond that revenue, but like the type of educational impact you're having? Or, I'll say, Jean, is there a company kind of or two in your portfolio that are thinking in really interesting ways about demonstrating the power of the work they're doing through particular impact measurements and metrics?
So we had to kind of figure the answer out to this question ourselves. So we did some soul searching, and what I can tell you is, starting out, we're a for-profit company. We're very clear about that, right? I mean, I actually am a strong believer that it's for-profit companies that can sustain and scale. And so, if you want to do that, you have to be for-profit. Having said that, I think we are really driven by the idea that we can change life trajectories of people that we engage with and can impart learning to. You think about English, right? You think about foundational skills. If I'm a little bit better at English today than I was yesterday, there's more that's accessible to me. That's more I can learn. Perhaps I can get a better job. And certainly, and you see this in several professions, if you're not that great at English, you have a limit in terms of how far you can go. And then beyond that, if you're not skilled, you're going to get stuck. So our view is every learner we can impact is going to change that learner's trajectory for the rest of their lives. That's what we want to get to. And so what and we're doing work, as I mentioned, in India and in the US. In India, we have this problem that there are a lot of people who want to learn, but they can't pay. So what do you do? Well, in those cases, what we're looking at is how do we find funding from donors, or there's this program in India, CSR, corporate social responsibility, which companies kind of put money into. How can we find money from those sources to pay for this? We're not going to do it for free because we can't. But how do we make that whole system work so that we're not saying no to learners? So that's impact as in, from a mission perspective. The second question is, how do you measure it? And I think, if you think about how our system works, somebody comes in, they do a placement, we understand what level they're at, we provide lessons, excuse me, and then we assess again, and they're at a higher level, and then we provide less. So you can see those trajectories, right? And there are various different curriculum standards, and all of them specify different levels. And now, as long as we're tracking to folks and seeing their journeys move forward, I mean, the system itself is measuring the impact on the go, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I think that you've pointed to something that, first of all, I think changing life trajectories is the long-term important, and then, to some extent will increase the knowledge of humans by our education institutions doing research too. But that's what we're here about. But I do think there's an interesting aside going on in AI right now, because some of the types of use of AI for example, for individual personal feedback, either as sort of a tutor or a practice bot, if you're running live to an AI system, it's expensive. And so there's some limits to what can be done. And again, we don't have to have everything run live. I mean, there's a lot of clever ways to get around some of that. But certainly right now, one of the things that will hold back as well is fear from the users, not understanding what they're working with from the users. So I like some of these products we saw today. Will as well as those holding back things going into education, I think the cost will be an issue, and so that's an aside on the underlying desire to get more people more educated.
Mm-hmm.
If I may just respond to one thing that you said, Jean, because I do think it's an important point. And Joy, sorry, keeping you waiting for a bit here. So I think in general, your point is absolutely right. I do want to make one in full disclosure here. A lot of our AI secret sauce is being developed by this guy also on this panel, Joy. So we use Gyan within English Helper. And that is a very light, very computationally light way compared to certainly these larger language models. And that's what enables us to do many of the things we're doing. And, Joy, maybe you can answer that question some more, but I wanted to mention that to everybody.
Thanks, Deepak. So, and also, I think Jean implied and said this also, like, I think we are, by being in this space and putting out solutions out there, I think we are part of a bigger movement that is accelerating, hopefully, access and equity, okay, across economic, social, global south, et cetera, right? So that's one point that we are part of. I mean, we are not direct, we are contributing, okay, in some small way, hopefully. And the other thing is the point that Deepak just made. On the sustainability side of things, not student impact necessarily, is we use a very small energy footprint, as opposed to, we don't have to set up a nuclear power plant to sort of train our language. Okay, that's, I think it's kind of getting there for some of these. So we don't use GPUs, we use CPUs for those who are into this. Okay, but so that's for the movement part. But I think at the company level, I think we don't within quotes, we don't directly touch the students. Our customers are institutions. So our impact measure is, to put it, very bluntly, is, so we are trying to, how are we trying to impact? Okay, let's just use two threads: continuous learning we talked about, and personalization. Okay, those are, I think, two major vectors of impact. I mean, think about personalized medicine, think about personalized, finance, financial advising, whatever. So, but personalized learning, that's what we do. And our measure of impact is, it sounded crass, is like, are we getting our contracts renewed? Okay, if there's a renewal of our contract, that means we are making a difference, okay, to that institution. But the point here is we don't directly own the students, so it's an indirect impact.
Yeah, very good. So let's talk about, there's a great question in the chat about, benchmarking or existing benchmarks or tools. This is such a new space, and there's so much happening. And how does someone who is very much interested, wants to adopt these technologies, listening to all of you, that you can see, like, you can feel that, all right, these are technologies that I want to explore, but like that trust component in such a, evolving and emerging space, how do people think about building tools or validating that these tools that you have and that you're delivering are worthwhile, right? Or up to the standard that you're talking about them being at, and can really drive the types of change. Like how is someone an informed consumer in something that's such a new area?
Sort of a AI certification stamp, right?
Seal of approval. Yes, good
So
housekeeping, good AI seal of approval.
I can try to go first. I think there's two levels of benchmarking, and I can talk about the first part. First part is the language model itself. And there are lots of benchmarks out there, actually, that are put out by various different groups, like Google, like Microsoft. So there's MS Marco, there's, for if you're in the medical field, there's PubMed QA, there's natural questions from, I forget who, maybe it's from Google. So these are large data sets with lots of questions on the one side and correct answers on the other side. And if your model can take these questions, look at the data set, and answer these questions accurately, that's the test. Okay, where do you stand on the leaderboard? But that's for the language model. That is like the engine of your car. Is still not going to give you a sense of how the car drives. Okay, so that's proof of the engine. Next is proof of the car, which is let's say the course generator in my case. That we don't have a benchmark for, okay, because this is a relatively new product. We don't know who to compare it with necessarily, but I think we need to get there. But the language model part, there is stuff out there. I mean, many of you probably know that, and you should go and look it up. And Gyan is going to publish. We are in the process of publishing our own benchmarks.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I guess on the education side, what we've done in the past with our earlier product is we've done a number of RCTs, randomized studies, where products are implemented with some students in some classrooms against the control groups and how they perform. So we have all that data, and it's very strong. With our this whole new platform, it's a whole new thing, right? It's brand new. We've just started giving out demo accounts, and we'll be starting our first pilots. And so we're also looking for early, not even adopters, early experimenters who are saying, you know what, it sounds interesting, let me try it and see for myself. And they'll bring on, 10, 20, 30 learners. We'll give it 2-3 months, and we'll see how it's going, and then we go from there. But I guess over time, we'll be able to generate real data on impact. But as of now, it's early days for the new product.
Amazing. That brings us back to the experimental approach that Jean was talking about. We need people that have that, right?
Well, I think in many places, people try to measure impact by trying to understand what change, the fact that this product exists, is that this capability and the teachers exist can be measured. And so these so-called logic models are a way of thinking about what are the inputs, the outputs, and over time. And we work with lots of early stage companies. And so what we know is you can't measure everything that you want to do early on. And so we sometimes think that if a company has a product roadmap, what they're going to do with their product, they should also have an impact measurement roadmap that goes with it, increasing amounts of additional data that they'll be able to access both from their own system, from instrumenting their own system, but also from perhaps getting the environment in which the product is delivered, say the school district or whatever, to also be able to share data out of other parts of the infrastructure that's being used for education. So do we know what the right answer is? No, I think we're in the middle of a huge societal or country worldwide experiment to try to figure out, well, what is it that we're trying to measure? And I think that, we're trying to measure better lives for more people. We're trying to measure that with equitable access. How are we going to get there? Let's work on it.
And okay, so we're at time, but I want to ask one, it's kind of pulling on a question in the chat. And so if you can just answer really quickly. I mean, the speed of change, the pace of change, the rate of change is shifting. I mean, what's next? Like, you're already talking about things that feel like we're on the edge, but what are some of we know that in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, there are going to be new features or additional AI tools. Like, what should we be looking out for? Just in a couple sentences, each of you, like, what's the next horizon? It's not even a horizon. It's like, what's around the next corner?
Well, I'll go first. I think we have to be looking out for making sure that we build the humans in the system. I mean, education is social. We learn from each other much better than we learn from sitting in front of a boring old screen. And so, really, how do we build in humans in the system across all of these areas?
And, answering more specifically from from my English helper hat, we're working on some very interesting stuff that will enable really proficient users to better comprehend what they're reading through our app. So you think about a 9-page research paper, it's dense. You guys are all from MIT, maybe you can read it once and understand it fully, but this is pretty hard. But what we're doing is we're building tools to help even advanced users really be able to consume what they're consuming through the app. So ultimate aspiration is for all of us, everyone, to have this app in their pocket and consume whatever they're reading with it.
The degree of noise is going to increase. I think maybe that's the basis of the question. How do I navigate this noise? I think maybe we can back to some of Jean's points and 5 Ds on that last slide. I think we have to get grounded in what we want, okay, and what we need to do with our students, and let the tools just be tools and not drive us. Right now, we are, the tail and the dog is getting all mixed up. So I think we just need to be the dog. And the future is completely uncertain. Nobody should even attempt to predict it, particularly in the AI world. It's not possible. Even the developers can't predict it. Sam Altman can't predict it. I mean, he doesn't know. He's surprised by the next release of his own product. Okay, so maybe we get out of that business and stay grounded on, what are we trying to accomplish here in education? So that's maybe an indirect answer.
That is the perfect way to kind of bring us back. Like, what do we want to accomplish in education, and think of these as tools and focus on the core mission. So I thank you all very much. Thank you to our audience for staying and for allowing us to go indulge us to go just a few minutes over so we could kind of get this look forward. Thank you very much, Bill, for bringing this group together, Joy, Deepak, Jean, for all the great insights, and for our folks in the audience for your questions and your attention. Amy has put a link in this chat for a survey that we would appreciate input from our participants. And thank you all. This has been recorded. We will be sharing that on our connector. But thank you. Have a wonderful day, evening, and rest of the week, wherever you are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.